Welcome to Echoes of Time, where the voices of history rise again. February 1814. The Napoleonic Wars have reached France itself. After years of victories, Napoleon's empire is crumbling. His great army has been destroyed in Russia. His German allies have abandoned him. At Leipzig, the so-called Battle of Nations, he was forced into retreat. Now, a coalition of Europe's greatest powers, Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Britain, presses toward Paris. Two massive armies, together more than 200,000 strong, invade eastern France. Napoleon commands barely 30,000 men. Many are untested conscripts, the youngest barely 17. France is exhausted. Supplies are short. Yet, from these desperate circumstances, Napoleon launches one of the most brilliant counterattacks in history, the 6 Days Campaign. The coalition plan was simple: overwhelm France with numbers. Field Marshal Blucher's army of Silesia advanced rapidly through Champagne, threatening Paris from the northeast. Meanwhile, Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia pushed from the southeast. If the two forces united, France would fall. But Blucher made a critical mistake: his forces were spread along separate roads, with poor coordination. This gave Napoleon his chance. If he could strike each isolated corps before they combined, he might turn the tide. Napoleon's first target was the Russian corps of General Alsacev, just 5,000 men, dangerously exposed. On February 10th, near the village of Champaubert, Napoleon's 30,000 fell upon them. The French artillery pounded the Russian lines. Infantry surged forward. The Russians fought bravely, but were hopelessly outnumbered. By evening, Alsacev's corps was shattered, most of his men dead or captured. It was a crushing opening blow. In a single day, Napoleon had torn a hole in Blucher's advance. Napoleon turned west immediately. Blucher rushed reinforcements, General Sacken's Russians and York's Prussians, toward Montmirail. On February 11th, they clashed. Napoleon positioned his conscripts to hold the center, while he prepared his elite Imperial Guard for the decisive strike. The fighting was brutal. French recruits, barely trained, faced relentless Russian attacks. But they stood firm, encouraged by the presence of the Emperor himself. At the key moment, Napoleon unleashed his guard. The French advanced in massive columns, supported by heavy cavalry charges. Sacken's lines broke. York's Prussians retreated in disorder. By nightfall, Napoleon had won his second victory in 2 days. Blucher's army was now divided and weakened. Napoleon refused to give the enemy time to recover. On February 12th, he pursued the retreating coalition forces to Chateau-Thierry, on the River Marne. The French stormed across the bridges. Artillery raked the fleeing enemy columns. Sacken's Russians and York's Prussians were driven into chaos, abandoning men and guns. For Napoleon, this was a triumph of speed and relentless pressure, classic hallmarks of his style. 3 victories in 3 days. France, for a brief moment, dared to hope. Blucher himself attempted to regroup. Gathering what forces he could, he advanced once more. But Napoleon was ready. On February 14th, near the village of Vauchamps, the two sides met. The battle quickly turned into a test of cavalry. Napoleon's horsemen, led by Generals Grouchy and Nansouty, launched repeated charges. The Prussians and Russians were driven back, pursued across open fields in one of the most effective cavalry pursuits of the Napoleonic Wars. By nightfall, Blucher's army was shattered. The coalition lost thousands of men, many units were scattered beyond repair. In just 6 days, Napoleon had fought 4 battles: Champaubert, Montmirail, Château-Thierry, and Vauchamps. Each was a victory. The coalition lost nearly 20,000 men. Napoleon lost fewer than 3,000. It was a campaign of speed, precision, and audacity, perhaps the greatest example of his art of war. But victory on the battlefield could not change the larger reality. For every corps Napoleon destroyed, more enemies marched into France. Blucher and Schwarzenberg still outnumbered him more than 6-1. Paris remained in grave danger. The 6 Days Campaign was Napoleon's last masterpiece. It showed the world that even in defeat, his genius remained unbroken. Yet, it was also his final triumph. Within weeks, Paris would fall. By April, Napoleon would abdicate the throne and go into exile on the island of Elba. The 6 Days Campaign of 1814 endures as a symbol of desperate brilliance, proof that one commander's skill can shape history, even when the outcome is already decided.